Hi everyone, so it's Les Arnott again here, and I'm going to give a really in-depth look at how I manipulate and play in Lightroom with my bird photography. So I'm going to take you through a lot of processes and also things that I use that probably no one else uses apart from students who have learnt the technique from me on really enhancing the quality of your pictures. Not just birds, but any form of picture using some of these techniques. But mainly we're aiming at bird photography today. Now, first of all, I do a lot of videos, and people say, well, who is he to teach? Who is he, what's he do? And it's a good question. I'll see if I can think about that. Well, first of all, I used to teach professionally for Lichfield District Council. I used to teach IT and photography to the community, so we was a community training centre. I won a few awards for the type of teaching that I actually done. I created an online version of training for photography and using Photoshop basically, and that won awards with BT, the phone company, for e-learning. So it won an e-learning award many moons ago. And basically since then I had to retire due to ill health, unfortunately, when I was 50, due to a complex diabetic problem. I fall over a lot without the aid of alcohol. Unlike when I was young, when I used to fall over with the aid of alcohol. But but yeah, so basically now I'm retired, but we still do community training. I say we because it's very hard for me to work alone, with the complex situation that I've got with my health. But I've joined together with the wife and another photographer, and we're all sort of got a disability. So we call ourselves the three Crips because that's basically what we are. We're three cripples who form together and help each other along. And by doing that, we're able to carry on teaching the community and the photographers in our local area. It's not so much teaching. Some of them are really advanced, really good photographers. But it's also a social club. It's not a camera club. We do fun competitions, but we do more training and showing people different methods using studio lights and all that. So it's nothing to do really with nature photography, although we do that as well. It's aimed through all different types of photography, macro, studio work, models and all that type of thing. And we do shoots, and when we put all this on, and basically things like this, if we make money from it, it all goes back into our little studio and our community group that we provide all this for. So any money made from these goes back into the photography environment as such. I do photography on my own back as well, and probably this is my most known image that's got my name around. And this is sold basically all over the world. You can see it's appeared on Country Life, it's appeared in all the major newspapers in the UK, especially when it first come out, which was back in 2016, I think, when I took that image. And since then it's sold worldwide. It's used by the Woodland Trust quite regular for their Valentine's Day and tree dedications that they do. So you can dedicate the image to get money for the Woodland Trust. And where else is it sold? Disneyland, Paris, it's been on China News, and very, very recently, in fact just a few days ago, NTD TV from America, who have over 30 million viewers, well over 30 million viewers, and people who follow them, they asked for permission to use that image, which I actually gave for free. So I imagine it will be very soon pretty viral all over America as well. So less of that. Let's get back on now to learning. And what we're going to do, using Lightroom and Photoshop basically. Now, there are other programs that I do use. I'll mention three. They're all by Topaz. I use Topaz Gigapixel occasionally. I use Topaz Denoise and Topaz Sharpen very, very occasionally. I've had these programs for years. I buy nearly every program there is, because if I'm training, I need to know about them and I need to be able to tell people about them. And I will go into those programs at a later time. But what for those people who haven't got those and they've just got Photoshop, there's still a hell of a lot you can do. And Photoshop has got that much better. You know, that they've got a great team, Adobe. It's obviously one of the most popular for photography, one of the most popular programs there is, used by most professionals, you know, as well as just the basic photographer. So really, I would advise the majority of people that there are other programs out there, not saying there's not, but if you're serious about photography, I would say get yourself Lightroom and Photoshop. It's the price of a packet of cigarettes, you know, for a month. You know, it's one packet of cigarettes per month, and give up smoking if you smoke and get yourself Photoshop. It really is worth the money. So let's stop there and we'll go into the first stages of editing a picture. Right, with this image, let's just take a look close up at this. You can see there's a bit of noise in the background there. There's a bit of a haze on the photograph. I'm going to explain why that is. So it's taken in low light. Now, I've recently purchased a new camera a few months back, a Canon R6, which is a fantastic camera. I absolutely love it. But what I also purchased was the quite strange f11 600mm lens, the new RF one. And it is a strange lens because when it first was announced by Canon, I was one of the people who sort of laughed and said, f11, that's going to be absolutely useless. You're not going to get results with that. And I've actually bit my tongue now because I think it's absolutely amazing. But it's only amazing with the capabilities of the camera and the ISO capabilities of the camera especially. Because when you shoot at f11, obviously it's slowing the lens down a little bit. You know, it's harder to get the fast action without bumping the ISO all the way up. And really, I don't use it for that. It's great for in-flight shots when you're taking pictures of birds in the sky, because you've quite often got really good light when you're shooting those type of shots. But for these type of shots where I'm working in dark conditions, and also apart from that, I'm working from inside the house, shooting through a window that isn't that clean, and these are images that I get. I've got a tree just outside the house and with feeders in there, and I get loads of goldfinches and greenfinches and whatever. But it's really early in the morning, so I'm having to use, I think, 4000 ISO. Oh, 5000 ISO. Okay, so I'm shooting at 5000 ISO with a 600mm lens at f11. So you can imagine there's a few problems there. But I don't mind that because I can get what I want from this image. And that is basically all I need to do. Do I want to be spending 10 grand on a super fast 600mm lens when I can get what I want using this? I have to do a little bit more work probably, but in my eyes it's worth the big saving because this lens costs less than £1,000, and I got £100 knocked off the price of it. I think it's about £750, something about that, and I got £100 knocked off that for a late delivery, so I was happy with that. Okay, so you can see we've got a few problems there, but we can put those right with the techniques that I use. Now, the technique I'm going to use mainly for this, so I could use all these Topaz programs, but I don't need it for this. I can, I can just use this and a technique that I created called frequency separation. And if you've paid for this, you will get that free. So you will get it free, and you'll be showing how to put it onto your version of Photoshop, and you'll be fairly amazed, I think, at what you can do with it once you learn how to use it. So that's what we're going to use on this. We're going to use frequency separation. And what frequency separation does is it actually gets all the texture of the image, so the bits that are sharp, and separates it from the background colours. So what you get is a layer with all the texture on, and then another layer with all the painting on there, or the actual colours on there. And you'll see how that works when we go through. Now, first of all, we are going to do a little bit of editing on this in Lightroom itself. So I'm going to go to the develop mode. First thing I always do is to look at the histogram. So I can see that on the left hand side we've got, it's in no way, everything's in the right place basically, it's all in the middle. But if I darken this, so I'm just going to take down the blacks, and you'll see the histogram up here move. And you can see we're getting rid of that haziness by bringing the blacks down slightly. And also on this side of the histogram, on the right hand side, which is the light area, so this little is like a little map of the luminosity in the shot. And if I take the whites up, you'll see that stretch just to there. So I'm not clipping, I've got everything tickety-boo as such. And then I'm going to go down to the noise reduction. So we go down to the detail section. We've got sharpening and we've got noise reduction. Now, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to bring the noise reduction down. Quite a bit. But I still want to make sure I'm losing no texture in the actual bird. So see, I've gone up to 36, 38. So there's still a little bit there, but I want to make sure this bird is sharp. So I'm just going to take the sharpening up a little bit. And you can see now that's really not a bad image whatsoever. We've got rid of most of the noise in there, and we're going to get rid of all of it after. So I'm going to bring the noise reduction down just a little bit so I can bring a bit more detail into the bird. And I'm fairly happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to crop this. Now cropping really is entirely up to the user, but what I would say in my case, I'm getting sort of the head area on this line of the thirds there, and if the bird is looking one way or the other, you always want more room to the side that they're looking basically. So it looks like they're looking into something and they're not on the edge of a picture. If you've got something like this, it just looks totally unreal. It's looking out of the picture. Your eyes are going this way and you haven't got the picture there. So that is what I think about. Straighten that up a little bit. Probably something like that. I'm cutting the bottom off as well because I think it just looks strange when you've got, so I'm getting rid of that there, keeping this wood area, the branch there. Let's just crop at that. Okay, so that's what we've got. So now I've got that, I'm going to bring the whites up a little bit. You see the histogram there? Just brighten it up. Okay, I'm fairly happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to right click on that now and edit in Photoshop. So I do very little in Lightroom. Some people like to do everything in Lightroom, but for me Photoshop is the area where you need to do the majority of work after the basic raw edit. So don't bother using the brushes much or anything like that. I do teach how to do that because some people like to do it, like I say, but Photoshop will give you much more control over your image that you'll see. So we're just waiting for that to load up. There we go. I'm going to double click the hand tool on the left hand side, and that just makes the picture fit to the screen. So we've still got a little bit of noise in the background, and also we need to improve the sharpness a little bit. So how do we do that? Well, this is where this frequency separation comes in. Now, I will have given you a download link to download that and instructions on how to install it. And when you have, if you go to your actions, now I've got lots of things on here, but you will see a folder with FS2 on there. It may look like that, or it may be open. If it is closed, click the little arrow there, that will open it. And all you need to do is to click on this first one on the list. And this is like a recording. Let's think of it as a tape recorder. So when I've created this action, I've gone all through those processes that you can see in this list. And it's quite a lot there. And what that does is I've recorded every step that I take. And then when you play it, it will do all of those things. You could go through and you could do all of those things step by step, but you'd be fed up after the first time trying to do it on every photo. So this is just a quick way of automatically putting everything into place for you to use. So all I need to do is to select the action there and go to the play button on the actions. Now the first thing that comes up is this box called median. And this is a way I blur the image that is quite different to how most frequency separation works. Usually they do use a blur. Now median, it blurs things, but it keeps the basic shape of things. If you was to blur something, usually it blows all the pixels apart, they all bleed all over the area, and it looks like you've exploded the picture basically. But on this one, it softens the image, but it keeps all of the form of the image together, and that's where this really scores over other methods. Now the radius, in most cases you will be okay leaving that at 8, and it will automatically come up at 8 because I've set it to do that when it comes up. So don't worry too much about that. It basically means we're blurring it enough to lose the detail. If I slide this back down, you'll see all the details there, and as I drag it up, that just gets silly. So we want to be at around 8, so I'll just type that back in. So we're just getting rid of the detail, and what that's going to do then is it's going to separate all that detail that's now gone out the picture and put it on a separate layer to this one. So I'll click on OK. And now when we look at our layers, so if you can't see the word layers there, if you go to window, you can basically anything that I say on the right hand side to click on. If you can't see it, if you go to window, you will see in alphabetical order all those things on there. So if I click on layers, that's another way of opening it, or I could just click on that if I can see it, and that'll come up. So you can see now what it's done. It's created a folder called FS2. It's got high, paint, low. All these are separate layers. So this high layer, if I click on that and I click on this little eye here, that takes all the detail out. If I click it back, that's where the detail is. It's all on that layer. The paint layer is just the colours. Now the low one, you could ignore these below. It's these two that we're working with, the paint and the eye. And basically with this one, we're going to be working on the eye layer. But before we do anything else, this is the original image at the bottom there. Let's go to that one. I'm going to go to that layer by clicking on it. So I'll click on it to select it. And what I want to do is to create a selection. So let's just hide. If I click on the eye on that folder there, all we can see now is what we've got on the original layer. So this is where we start. We're going to work on this background, and what I want to do is to make a selection of this branch and the bird. So we're separating it from the background, or making a selection from the background. So the way we do that, Photoshop is great at this. It depends on your image, but 9 times out of 10 you will get a good result. So I'm going to go to select, and I'm going to click on subject, and what will happen is it will try and find the subject on there and make a selection. Now it's made a reasonably good job. You can see it's selected all this area. We got little bits missing, and we're going to see now how we can add and take away from those selections. So on the left hand side, if we look at the tools, what you need to do is to find the quick selection tool. Now this is a selection tool, sorry, not the quick selection, the object selection tool, I should say. This is a newish tool that's in Photoshop. Now if you can't see that, I will provide a little separate video on how to actually, any tools that you can't see, I will show you how to get so that you can see them, because sometimes in Photoshop that's actually not on the list of tools that are provided, but it's still within the program, you can still access it. Okay, so with that on, the important thing is where on the options bar, this is called the options bar at the top. Any tool has got options for it, and they're always on this bar at the top of the screen. So we can use these various buttons. Let's read what they say. New selection. If I was to click that and I was to do anything, that selection we've already got would disappear. So obviously we don't want to use that. The second one is to add to the selection. So if I've got bits missing, I can add to the selection. And I'm not going to worry about the last one, the intersect. That one really doesn't come into play with this. But subtract. So they are the two important ones, add and subtract. Also, the mode, we want it to be lasso, not square. You can see you've got rectangle or lasso. Make sure that's on lasso. It's, in my eyes, much better. Okay, so let's look at what's selected. So we've got all this selected now. It's selected this part of the background as well, which we don't really want. So I'm going to click on the subtract icon up here. And I'm going to be great at drawing this. You just basically say, oh, it's around this area. And you can see it selected that. But it also took off a bit of the tail. Now this tool is intelligent. In other words, when I keep switching from these different tools, it will say, okay, well last time he selected this and it didn't work. So it tries to learn from the steps that you take. So I'm going to click on the add one now. And I'm going to go back over this area, just like that. And you can see now it's added it. And also I want all of this branch, so I'm just going to go along here and do that, and you can see that it's made a fairly good selection along there. So this is what I keep doing. I keep swapping from these tools. There's a bit missing there that I want, so I'm just going to go around that. Still a little bit there. There we go. It's got this area now. We've got that. We've got the feet how it should be. We've got all this. There's a little bit missing off the toe there. That's got that. So I'm just drawing over any areas I've got missing. Just to make sure I've got all the top of the head there. So I'm just going to go over that area. So you see, I'm not being too careful with this. There's a little bit on the beak. Let's just see if I can get that. I may not. Maybe a bit too small. No, it's not going to do it. Let's just have a look. I think we've got it, but I'm just going to make sure I'm going to click on the ad and make sure I've got the bottom of that beak there. And I think we've managed to get that. There's a bit on the beak there that I probably don't want, but what we'll do, maybe a bit down here. Okay. So now we're there. We've got the selection on the bird. Now what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to go back to my layers and I'm going to go to the high layer. This one there. Remember, this is the one with the detail. Now, if I just hide this for the time being, you'll see that when I do that, it takes all the detail off. So basically, it's blurring that background and getting rid of all the noise. And that's what I want it to do. I want it just to select the areas that I want in focus without the noise that's in the background. So if I now add a layer to that, so if I click this add layer mask, now again, if you don't understand all this, don't worry too much. What you want to do is to watch the video and follow just step by step and only do what I do. And by doing that, you will learn a lot, right? It will start to sink in about what's actually working. Now, what a mask is basically just that. It masks off part of the image. If I click on that now, you will see it's created this little black box with white bits on it. And basically think of that as black being transparent and white as being opaque. So in other words, the white bit is this focus bit, but now what's happened is we can see through this layer. So it's not showing this background that had all the texture in there. The texture is now removed and we're viewing what's below that, which is this paint layer. If I hide that, we just zoom in. So let's take those two off. You can now see, by hiding the paint layer, that now I can't, that's the noise that's there. But now let's put those back on. Can you see what's happening now? So this bit is the sharp area, which I've retained. But now what I've done is I've got that blurred background. And it's a natural blur. Okay, so let's just double click the hand tool here. Let's look in at this now. Let's say I want a little bit more sharpness to the bird. Okay, so there's an easy way of doing that now, because what we've got is this high layer that's got all the texture on it, but it's only showing these areas, that white area there, which is the bird, and this bit that we selected, the branch. Now if I right click to the right of this, on this area, it allows me to do something. It allows me to, well, lots of things, but I want to duplicate that layer. So I duplicate the layer, click on OK, and what that does is it doubles the amount of sharpness on the image. So now you can see it hasn't done anything to the background because we've still got that mask there. It's also copied the mask. So we've got a completely clear background, but what we've now got is twice the amount of sharpness on the actual bird. Now in some cases that may be too much, but we've got total control over the amount that we've added to that. If I just click on that and we look at the opacity of the layer, which is here, I can now reduce that all the way down to nothing, which is the best thing to do usually, and then just bring it up a little bit of time, keep looking at your image without going over the top, because if you over sharpen an image it looks really bad. But I think about there, it looks great. So now you can see we've got rid of all that noise that was in the original image. We've got the sharpening. And we haven't used Topaz denoise, we haven't used Topaz sharpen. Now I will say, when you use those programs, the problem is it looks at the whole image. It doesn't allow you just to select part of the image. So sometimes you use sharpen and it's sharpening a little bit of the background and you get a bit of noise in there, and you use the denoise and it does vice versa, it softens the picture slightly. Now when I've got extremely bad images, well, I'll never use extremely bad images, but if the noise is a lot more or it needs sharpening, then I might use those programs. Now sharpening, obviously, I haven't got to worry with, because this way is actually much better than Topaz sharpening in my eyes, and you're only sharpening the area that you want to sharpen, the important bits. We don't want to sharpen the background. or try and denoise the background and sharpen one area. We're just concerned with the actual bird, and that is all we're doing. We're sharpening that area. So that is the first lesson. All we need to do now is flatten that image, and we've got no noise in the background, and we have got a sharp looking greenfinch. So all I need to do now is, once I've flattened the image, is go to File, Save, wait for that to complete. Now I'm just going to close Photoshop, and I've still got Lightroom open. Days, or has he? Yes, he has. There we go. So that is the image that we just edited, and here is the original. See the noise in that? Let's just reset that, because that wasn't the original. That's the original image. This is the one we've edited. Let's just look at the difference between those two. Now you can see why I use Photoshop. And to be honest, I've got an image there that even the best lenses, you know, you wouldn't get much better than that. You may get a more diffused background, but you can do that as well. That's in another lesson. We'll show you how to totally diffuse the background and give it a look like it's been took with a 500mm prime at f4 or whatever. You can achieve that.